Hey everybody, welcome to the Geek Reloading podcast. I am your host Adam, and as always, my co-host Josh.
Hello.
And this one, this is one that Josh brought to the table. This one is pretty interesting. We're going to go over our favorite DLC content for some of our favorite games. So obviously, you have your main game that obviously most people already know to play, but DLC is sometimes something that people don't experience or something that they just don't realize might be worth it to add on to a story that they already enjoy.
Or they don't want to pay the extra money, which is fair. Like, I understand that. No, I was just...
Yeah, I used to be one of those guys. Don't worry about it. I used to be one of them all the time. It's fine.
And then, one of these games actually got you really excited. But no, I was thinking about it, and there's a lot of stuff that I was like, there's a lot of really cool stuff that's been added after a game has been released. And there's some games that, if it wasn't for their DLC, they probably wouldn't have been a decent game at all. So
yeah, and we have some on here, some titles for these DLCs that literally are practically their own game.
Oh, by far.
Yeah, on length and story and everything. And so it is kind of cool to talk about these, because if it is a game that you've been interested in or you enjoyed and you didn't play the DLC, this might entice you to play it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And just to give a heads up, everyone, Adam is by far the smarter one of us two. He's usually the one that comes up with the different ideas. He's definitely the more creative. So when he says, yeah, I actually came up with this, I come up with a couple, but not many of our ideas. So we all have Adam to thank for this.
What's nice is I come up with a topic, but then you and me are about 50-50 when we actually start talking about talking points. It's pretty straightforward, but I mean, yeah, I'll bring up a topic, but it's not like you're bringing nothing to the table, buddy, because I mean, almost every single episode, it's pretty close to 50-50 when it comes to, oh, let's talk about this, let's talk about that.
I try, because I gotta keep up with you, man.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. All right, so you actually have the first one.
I do have the first one, and I put it first just because I didn't get really into it, but I loved it for what it was, is Red Dead Redemption's Undead Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
I did not finish Red Dead Redemption because I was having some major migraines because of the Mexico. Like
the Mexico filter?
Yeah, something about that freaking lighting just... It made me get really sick to my stomach, and yeah, it was bad. But the Undead Nightmare, I played it a couple years after I had played most of Red Dead Redemption, and holy crap, that thing is fun. It is fun to, be in a zombie world with a game that was not zombie. I thought that was really, really well done.
Yeah, and you know what's awesome? I mean, Red Dead Redemption already was known as like a critical darling and a fan favorite, but I mean, they took that environment and that world and adding zombies to it just created a whole different element, and it was way fun.
It was a whole new game that way, and I really, honestly, if nothing else, for the concept of it, the idea of you playing this normal game and then something happened where all of a sudden it is a zombie game, and like... I love the concept of that. Like, I love the idea of, you've been playing this game for a long time. A lot of people played that game a lot because there was so much to do in it.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, whole new game.
Yeah, and what's funny is that this is not the last time that we'll have a zombie-based DLC recommended in this list. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, dude, my first one, I'm always going to harp on just how good Witcher 3 is.
Yes, but, absolutely.
Like, Witcher 3, if you're quick, you could probably burn through the storyline within 50, 60 hours. Like the length of an RPG, right?
Yeah.
But the cool thing about Witcher 3 is that the DLCs, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, are both the full length of another game. Like, you can literally play for another 50, 60 hours on each one of those DLCs. So it's kind of like you're getting Witcher 3, Witcher 4, and Witcher 5 on it. And it's just awesome because it's not just, oh, you're changing the mechanics, like, oh, there's new enemies and stuff. Like, one of them, you have a whole new way to augment your weapons. There's whole new spells and stuff like that. And then that's Hearts of Stone, if I'm not mistaken. But the one that I want to talk about is Blood and Wine. Blood and Wine... it's obviously DLC that's meant to be played after what you play Witcher 3, and it kind of wraps up Witcher 3 and your storyline, and it kind of goes on like Geralt the after years. And kind of after that big story arc in the original game, what does he do? And what's great is that you're in a land of Toussaint, which is like the classic when you think of high fantasy knights and dragons and all that kind of stuff with like knights fighting for a lady's hand in marriage and all that kind of crap. Like when you think of like the really, really like fantasy novel fantasies, this is the kind of world that they built. And Blood and Wine is all about kind of leaning into that fantastical world, because Witcher 3 was a lot more gritty and had a whole lot of realism and a little less of that frilliness to it. But this one was awesome because it's like, oh, you're like running across these long scapes of wineries and stuff, and you're fighting dragons and you're saving maidens, and all of the knights of Toussaint are very pompous and in gold armor and everything, and you can have this entire after the Witcher 3 life with Geralt, and it's super fun.
That is really cool. Like I really do like I've been reading the Witcher books, and so the storylines it is very fantasy world and everything, and being able to kind of see a little bit more of the not really read about, but you kind of assume a lot of these stories. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so what you got, man? What's the next one? So next one is just amalgamation of a lot of shit, and I put Destiny and Destiny 2 because so many of their DLCs, so many of their updates and everything were just completely whole new games. Like they changed so much about it, but it was all built on the same foundation of the original game. And I think that's one of the things why I really wanted to talk about DLCs is just the concept of taking a game that is good. Like Destiny is one of my favorite shooters. I love the feel of the shooting. I love the feel of all the mechanics with it. It's just a solid shooter. And being able to have all these different DLCs and everything to update it, to change it, and to make it a different game every time, but still have the same solid mechanics, I just love that concept, honestly. That's awesome. And so I figured it would only be fair if I actually chose an actual one DLC to say. And the Taken King was such a great update. I really feel like that's when they really hit their stride. It was for the first Destiny, and they knew what this game was. They knew how this game was going to be, and they really took it to a higher level with the Taken King. Was that the second or the third DLC? Yeah. So, interesting. I was always excited. I always had a good time playing the new DLCs for those games. So it was exciting for a long time. So I just had to put all of them. Nice. I mean, say what you will, but when Bungie came out and they were saying, hey, Destiny is going to be a 5-year game. We're going to be pushing it out for 5 years. It's going to be from start to finish. Our goal is to support it or whatever for 5 years. And then we're going to go to Destiny 2. I wouldn't necessarily say that they hit the mark exactly, but you can definitely tell they tried to keep it alive with mini updates, with patches, and then along with the extra DLCs as you went along. They definitely tried to make the longevity really be there for that title, so then people didn't feel like it. I mean, the vanilla Destiny was rough. Let's be honest. Oh yeah, absolutely. But actually, like when I look at it, like, because they had that, this is the path for Destiny, and they had it laid out for, I think it was 10 years right from the get-go, and Destiny 2 was right in the middle of that. The thing is I really believe that some of the stuff that they added later on was so much better than even just the base game, like the sparrow racing. I loved the stupid sparrow racing, and they had built it off of this very solid mechanic of, these sparrows that you could run around on. And so the fact that they were like, okay, we're going to be continuing with this game for this long, they could do stuff like that, where they could say, you know what, we're just going to do like sparrow racing, like we're just going to do like PvP, you know, the Iron Banners and stuff. Like those were fun events, but it wasn't like necessarily, it shouldn't have been in the game constantly. It was exciting because they were kind of here and there. So I don't know. I just, as much as I disliked a lot of the stuff that happened with Destiny 2 lately, I just, it will always have a very good place in my heart. And it's just because it's a solid system and they can build a lot off of it.
And you know, when you have that long of a planned out like franchise, you're like, hey, this is a 10-year goal, this is a 10-year franchise. I mean, you're gonna have some misfires. I mean, I was one of the people that at the beginning of Destiny 1, when vanilla came out, I'm like, this is kind of ass, and I kind of trailed off. But I missed the boat, because I mean, once the DLC started kicking in and stuff, like that's really when Destiny started to shine. And so it's something that, it's when you think about a game as a longevity option, you know, and you start thinking of it in a, hey, we're going to keep on supporting and adding more and more to it over the span of this many years, then I think it gives you a little more space to have those kind of mistakes happen.
Yeah, it's just kind of a, well, I mean, and even now, like I watch a lot of videos from Dado still, and he will talk about, yeah, this update, this, you know, this season is not good. Like he'll say it, but he still loves the game because the next season might be great, or the next, you know, they might completely change their way they're doing it. They actually care about that game, and they're really pushing still. Like it's still doing something, which just impressive to me.
Nice. So I mean, this one was much in a different tone. Because Destiny was all about, hey, we're going to support this and do this for a long time. But the one that I have that I want to talk about was Last of Us Left Behind, which is kind of like a singular episode one-off after The Last of Us. But what was nice is that this one specifically followed just a small component of a bigger story. Because, I mean, you had Joel and Ellie and everything, and you start off the beginning of Last of Us with Joel essentially meeting Ellie for the first time when Ellie is needing to be transported, right? Yeah. But what Left Behind does is that it fills in a lot of Ellie's backstory as a kid who's growing up during the pandemic, and her experiences that led her to be in this untrustworthy, kind of standoffish and defending for herself kind of mentality. And it also filled in a very big point that for some reason people didn't like quite, they were surprised by Last of Us 2 when it turns out that she's gay, but that was established in Left Behind and in the comics and in canon. And like, you know, Left Behind was where it was like initially brought up and addressed and everything, and it brings up a point and then it definitely changes your mindset of how she thinks about when she cares about people and stuff. I mean, it was probably, I want to say 2 hours, 3 hours at the most. I don't think it was that long, but it added a lot to the story and it made you more invested in Ellie as a character, and it was super interesting.
Well, and that brings up a really good point with all these things is some of these DLCs, they add to the mechanics of the game. Like a lot of the Destiny stuff, I think is more mechanics. Mm-hmm. But then there's some that are more just story, and like it doesn't need to be another 15, 20, 30, 50 hours like The Witcher 3. It doesn't need to be that long to tell a really good portion to a story that you already have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, 2 or 3 hours, sometimes that is way enough to tell a story that you need to add to. And that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so the next one, I wasn't sure if this would be considered DLC because it was before the downloadable content of the stuff, but
I feel like it counts.
I think it really does, and I was looking online, and a lot of people think it counts. Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne. Now, Warcraft 3, it's got some very close, fun parts of my heart still, but man, like the Frozen Throne was a whole new game. I mean, you had to buy the whole new disc and everything, but it just added so much, and it told such a fun story. Like it just, yeah, I really liked Warcraft 3, and it added a whole new game pretty much. So yeah,
and that's awesome.
I just had to kind of poke that a little bit in there.
And also A+ to Blizzard for being pretty much an awesome example of just consistently supporting your titles in the long run. I mean, if you think about the evolution of Overwatch, and if you think about the fact that Warcraft 3 had the Frozen Throne, and then there was a whole nother one, wasn't there? And then if you look at World of Warcraft, they had how many expansions over and over and over? You know, yeah. I mean, and to that point, I actually even brought up right below it, just as like a piggyback, Starcraft Brood War. Did you ever play it, man?
I never got into Starcraft. I just never did.
Man, it was really, really good. But I mean, Brood War specifically just kind of turned the entire idea on its head, because it was actually made you kind of focus obviously more on the Zerg and everything, but it just felt so different. Even though it was the same game, it was the same enemies and monsters that you'd seen before and everything, it did feel different because it was a different perspective, and that's what made it really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think they do that really well, because that was the same with the Frozen Throne. Is you had this hero that you were playing in the first part, this human hero, and he pretty much turns into like the undead king. Like, and it's just like, and it's kind of like his progression into that, and so it's like this. It's kind of taking that story that you already know and flipping it on its head. Yeah, so exactly. I really appreciate a lot of that stuff, because it's like, it really does make you think, but it didn't take too much. It's not like they needed to, have all new assets or anything. It's just telling the story in a different way. So yeah, definitely. It was cool. Yeah. So I had to add the next one, Fallout 4, the Automatron DLC, because I was playing, I was enjoying it. I had my dog, like that was my partner. I always had my dog until he got hurt one time, and I was like, fuck, I gotta restart. So I stopped and I restarted, because if anyone knows me, I've got like the most bleeding heart for puppies. And so when I got this DLC and I started playing, and I realized, holy shit, I can just build a robot out of parts that I already have that's going to come with me. Like, I don't have to put dog meat in as a, in any danger. And so he just got to like chill at home with all of his homies, and he had a nice little dog house. It made me happy. And then I had this badass robot that just shot lasers at everything, and I loved it. And it was just like, it was so cool. Like, I had Ada come with me most of the time, because she was just a damn good robot, but it was still like, it just created that protection for the main character in my mind is dog meat. Yeah, absolutely. And so the next one, I think, is probably one of my favorite ways that they have done DLC, because it just feels like so neat, and everything comes in a complete package. And that is from the Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 series, when they would do new campaigns, or the movies that that they would actually create. And it was so great, because every single movie was different. You had a different objective: get on the boat, get on the helicopter, survive this long, whatever. But each one was set in a different car, so you can get in the car. Like, yeah, and it was. You're right. It was these bite-sized chunks of story and gameplay that it was all built, but it was just like its own little thing. And I agree with you. It was such a well done situation. Yeah, and what was nice is that if you play the movies that initially came out all together, they actually all piggyback off of each other. You have, like No Mercy, they get into a helicopter, the helicopter crashes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like, what was cool is that the DLC did also play into those. It's like, oh, this sets up in the outskirts between like No Mercy and Death Toll. But
what was really cool is that it also did have some things that changed it and turned on its head, like the sacrifice. You actually had to sacrifice one of your people. One of the people had to stay behind to make it work all the way to the end of the level. So like it was a different way of playing. Rather than everybody survive at the very end, one person had to be the hero and had to sacrifice themselves and everything. I mean, it was just cool. Just like Steam said, hey, we're gonna keep on supporting you. You can expect more campaigns from us on both Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2. And they delivered. And I was super stoked every single time a new one showed up.
Seriously, I feel kind of dumb about this because I didn't realize like they kind of piggyback it off of each other until I mean, I'd been playing it for years with a buddy, and I was like, wait a minute, like you start one in kind of a forest with a broken down car, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this is the car that we just filled up with the gas tanks. And I was like, it honestly took me a moment to realize that. And it like I felt dumb, like, because my buddy was just like, yeah, they all go after that. Like, you start another one after you fail your escape with this one. And I was oh shit, I'm an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, hey man, everybody's got their blind spots.
Man, it was one of those things. I was just because I was searching around the car for something, and we had just finished the previous one, and I was like, holy shit, that's pretty awesome. All right, so the next one is, and it's because I've been watching a lot of gameplay of it lately, is Don't Starve.
Okay, you have to explain Don't Starve to me. I've seen it a little bit, but realistically, I have no idea about this game at all.
So, Don't Starve is, it's kind of a survival, I don't know, it's like a resource gathering survival mechanic. You grow up in this world, and you kind of build, you build in this world, and you have to like just pretty much survive. Like, one of the big things is, you need to keep yourself fed, you need to keep yourself healthy, you need to keep yourself sane. That's another big thing, is like you go insane, and then like different things happen during the game. And so
interesting.
Honestly, what I need to do is I just need to be like, hey, you wanted to try new games? Let's play this for half hour, 45 minutes. I'll buy it for you. and really, what I've found is you really like it, or you get really curious about it, or you hate it. You just absolutely hate it. So maybe I'll just waste some money and let you hate a game that you probably will never play. But so they've got two main. Well, they've got three, but I do not like Shipwrecked. Like, they have three main big DLCs. Like, the first one was Reign of Giants, and it created these giant creatures every season. So, and it was so fun to take on these these huge monsters that could just destroy everything. But then they came out with Don't Starve Together, and this is what this game should have been in the beginning, I think. Because being able to play with someone else, I mean, it was clunky as hail in the beginning. Like, it was really quite terrible in the beginning. It was buggy. It was like you couldn't connect very well. It was just bad. But now they've really got it figured out, so it actually works really well together. And so this game, it's all about collection and item management and different things like that, and being able to survive. And you could really screw someone by eating all the food, or this or that, or you can really help someone. Like, you collect stuff to keep out of the dark, and I'll collect food. Like, it's really well done that way.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I really liked the game. It was a lot of fun, and I mean, this is one of the games that I got really into the mod scene for it. And so I liked playing around with like the mechanics and different things like that. And what's really cool is some of the mods were, or like the basic game, you can actually change, so it's like, oh, I want more of this in the world, or I want less of that in the world. And there's just so much with the game. It just goes crazy, in my opinion. So I really appreciate these upgrades. And
Nice, man.
And then there's Shipwrecked, which is their last DLC, which is pretty much a whole new game. It's the same game but on the water, and the water has always been an area that you can't access.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been kind of interesting. Now they're starting to blend all these games together. So you have like Shipwrecked stuff in these worlds with like still the giants, and you can play together, and it's crazy. It's just, I think it's doing really well that way.
That sounds like way more robust than I was expecting.
Oh, it is. It's something that you can climb into pretty deeply, but again, like it's you either get curious about it and want to play it, or you hate it. There's I wouldn't even say there's not very many people that really like it. They just get curious and want to prove to themselves that they can do it.
Interesting. So, nice.
Anyways.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of like the flat 2D overhead stuff very often, but every once in a while it hits right. And so I feel like I should give it a shot.
I think I'll just have to waste my money and just let you try it.
Oh, don't worry, homie. I just need to get it. I have like way too much in Google Play credits. I just need to get it, and I'll mess around with it on mobile.
Don't get it mobile. Don't get it on a console. Get it on your computer.
Get it on okay, so I wrong move. All right.
Well, seriously, it's one of those things like, you know how it's just bad when you're like trying to select stuff and it's not built for controller or mobile. Just let me buy it for you on Steam, and we'll play, and you can be like, yeah, this game is dumb, and then I'll be like, I'm glad I wasted that money then.
Yeah, you're starting to sound like my sugar daddy, man. It's getting kind of weird up in here.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I did mention that we were gonna have another game that brought zombies into the situation, and it just fit really well. Yeah. And so that's where I'm gonna talk about Borderlands 1, the Zombie Island of Dr. Ned.
Yes.
Yeah, this one, dude, once again, if you're talking about games that do DLC right, the Borderlands franchise is just, it's just top notch. It's the best. Yeah,
absolutely. Like,
I mean, it's good.
The next one is what made me think of this whole podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, so the Zombie Island of Dr. Ned was great. I mean, just the fact that first off, if you jumped into it too early, it was hard as shit.
Oh,
but also,
yeah.
You know, the constant zombie part of it, it wasn't like smash you over the head with zombies. Like, they were around and they were in between you and point A and point B. But but it didn't feel like overwhelming, kind of like Left 4 Dead zombies. It was more so, on top of that, the storyline around the zombie side of it and the island and everything was just great writing. And, you know, they did the same thing with the Badass Crater of Badassitude, and then General Knox and all those. I mean, the only one that felt like a little iffy was the Claptrap one, but I mean, the Zombie Island and General Knox, yeah, that's true. But I mean, the rest of them I thought were just awesome. They were great.
Really, they were, and it just kind of lent itself really well to the mechanics of the game, just adding right into that zombie island. So
yeah, and absolutely.
It was really funny because Dr. Zed is a funny character anyways. And he really made that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so my next one, and this is the one that actually I was watching a stream with someone else, and they were talking about DLCs, and I was like, holy shit, this one was my absolute favorite DLC. Like, I love this DLC, except for the next one, because the next one, yeah, anyways, is in Borderlands 2, Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon's Keep.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, that... Like, I played that DLC so many times just because I loved the storyline. I loved the mechanics of it. I loved everything. It was a perfect loot drop at the end. Like, it was such a good DLC. Like, just, that is what DLC should be. And the other thing is as we were playing, like, I wasn't even expecting. I was like, oh, this is a cool story. Like, and I mean, it's really like, they're playing Dungeons and Dragons pretty much, and I was like, holy shit. And when you started realizing the story, like in the real story, like all this stuff, because, you know, spoiler alert, everyone, just so you know, if you haven't played Borderlands 2, which is, what, a 10-year-old game, if not more.
It's your own fault by now.
Yeah, sorry, spoiler alert. Like, Roland is dead, and so this is happening after the main game, and it's Tiny Tina's way of accepting this. And so, you know, Roland is a character in this story of hers. He's like this special knight, and you start to realize that Tiny Tina is not just a fun, amazing character. She's actually a person, and and this is kind of the one that really sold it for me. Is she was missing this person that she always looked up to, that helped her, that was always there for her, and was kind of like a father figure to her. And this storyline is it's this freaking fantasy tale in Borderlands, and he like, it's dealing with this character that she's missing, and I love that. I cried, I teared up like a little girl.
It's probably the best DLC that they did for Borderlands 2, I think.
I would say it's the best Borderlands DLC, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, I think that could be argued for sure.
I could easily see it, because I mean because it was a great storyline, it was a fun mechanics, everything. Like the mimics were so badass in that. But yeah, and it was a great loot area. So, and then the last one is me also, and I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I had to bring this up, is in Bioshock Infinite, Burial at Sea.
Yes.
And holy shit, I didn't realize how much I had missed Rapture until Burial at Sea came out. And it's like, I liked Elizabeth. I didn't really necessarily like her mechanics the way she was, because she's supposed to be pretty much this all-powerful being. But she wasn't in this. And it took Rapture and made it kind of a stealth game rather than, go and kill everything. And I was really impressed by that. I was really impressed by the story. And I already liked Elizabeth, but I didn't realize how much I missed Rapture. I mean, granted, Infinite is a beautiful game, and all that story and the location is amazing. But I was really impressed just how much I loved this. And it actually had a good explanation why it looked the same as most Rapture games, but it was also not anywhere. There was only a couple places where you kind of went through that you recognized from the first, but it wasn't like you were just running through the same maps. I just love that. And so it was my favorite DLC all time, I think.
Truthfully, I liked this DLC a lot, kind of for the same reasons. Honestly, Bioshock Infinite didn't hold my interest that much. When it comes to the story arc and everything, I thought it was interesting, but the world and everything just felt a little too smashing you over the head with it for me. But when I played the DLC, it actually, like you were saying, it made you go, oh man, Rapture was really good. And I forgot how much I missed Rapture. That's awesome. Like that really brought it home, and it made me like Infinite even more, actually, because at the time I was like, I could go either way. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was. I'm glad they made that, because I think that kind of saved Bioshock Infinite for me. I don't know.
I think the storyline was a lot more epic and everything with Infinite, but like the first DLC, like, because I bought the freaking whatever the pack of DLCs, because I was like, I want to go back to Rapture. That's freaking awesome. And the first DLC they come out with is this way, like, all right, it's a shitty wave that you have to. I was just like, this is stupid. And then I was actually kind of upset that I had bought the DLC and all that, and then Burial at Sea happened, and I was like, oh shit, this is amazing. Yeah. And I was just sitting there waiting for the part 2, and I was like, oh my gosh. So Absolutely. I just love that. So
Nice.
I think that's it.
Yeah, that is our episode this time. Obviously, we've only played our little corner of the gaming world, but I mean, there's got to be a ton of other awesome gaming DLC that we have yet to even touch or talk about. But luckily, that's why we can look at recycling some of these episodes and maybe even have a guest over who will be like, well, you never mentioned this, and this is a game changer. You never mentioned this, and you should definitely give it a shot. But I mean, definitely take a look at some of these if you haven't. Sure, we divulged a few spoilers here and there, but that doesn't change the fact that these are just some bitchin' content for gamers.
And I know for me, like, I kind of shied away from some of the stuff that were technically updates and not, DLC. So it was like, I didn't mention Terraria's, like, At World's End. And that was almost revamping the entire game. And so, it is kind of a... it's hard to define DLC, so maybe next time we'll have to do a DLC and update, just so it's easier to define. But
yeah,
this
absolutely.
was fun. I really like this.
Yeah. Anyway, we hope you guys liked it. All of our info's at the end. If you have a question or a comment, feel free to message us or comment on our pages on Facebook, Instagram, or you can reach us at Gmail at geekreloading@gmail.com. And yeah, we hope you guys liked it, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Geek Reloading Podcast with Adam and Josh. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have a question? Email us at geekreloading@gmail.com. Theme song titled Rocket by Kevin MacLeod. You can rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast service.